Part 5. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 41. 41 Siege. Captain Wells reacted very quickly, and immediately said in the communication, "This is a conspiracy by the other party. They want to disturb our military morale. Don't pay attention to it, and continue to act according to the established goal." The 5 teams of the Delta Force acted separately, controlling the commanding heights of the central hall, determining the surrounding terrain and room conditions, looking for hidden traps, and so on. Although this is just a hall, it is generally good to pass by, but their actions are very careful. Everyone in the Delta Force is a strictly trained soldier, and they will not give the enemy any chance to ambush themselves. Zhang Xingwen also looked around. There was obviously a gun battle here before, but obviously these temporary coalition forces composed of experimenters and U.B.C.S soldiers did not resist the massacre of the U.S.S, leaving more than a dozen corpses here. Thinking of this, he was shocked. There seems to be something wrong with the positions of these corpses. Others don't know, but he is very clear, this is the world of Resident Evil. And this is Umbrella's research institute. Therefore, it is also possible to say that there is a T-virus infection here. If these corpses become zombies, Zhang Xingwen found out in horror that in that case all the Delta troops would be surrounded by zombies. Before Zhang Xingwen finished speaking, he suddenly thought that most of the corpses had been headshot, and then he breathed a sigh of relief and did not warn. Because a corpse after a headshot cannot become a zombie, this is common sense in Resident Evil and even almost all zombie films. The location of these corpses can only be considered as the fact that these people wanted to form an encirclement to ambush the U.S.S, but they were killed by the opponent with extreme strength. The location of these corpses is just a coincidence. However, at this moment, he suddenly saw the fingers of one of the corpses moving. Naturally, he immediately confirmed this point with his skill. It was not a mistake. Not an illusion. "Be careful with these corpses," Zhang Xingwen yelled immediately. But it was already too late. The Delta soldier who was inspecting a corpse on the other side just lowered his head, when suddenly the corpse opened its mouth, spouting a large puff of purple smoke that enveloped him in an instant. "Ah! Gilwa!" The soldier clutched his neck and screamed loudly, fell to the ground and rolled all over the floor. "Medical soldier!" Wells yelled, and immediately a medical soldier rushed over to check on the poisoned soldier. It was too late to say it, but the medical soldier had just passed by, and the corpse suddenly got up, and the medical soldier was hugged at an extremely fast speed. The strength of the zombie was surprisingly strong, and the medical soldier was completely powerless to resist and was bitten on the neck immediately. Blood splattered everywhere. "Shoot! Hit these corpses!" Zhang Xingwen yelled, and at the same time, the 2 large pistols in his hand fired one after another, smashing the corpse in front of him into 2 pieces. What he used was a modified M-500 revolver, which used .50 Malin bullets and was specially used for hunting large animals. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. All the Delta soldiers immediately reacted and raised their guns to shoot, and the corpses also started to crawl up. The bullets hitting them had no effect at all. And what's even more frightening is that these zombies are extremely fast, jumping up and starting to run wildly. Although there were only a dozen of these zombies, they happened to cover all the blind spots around the Delta Force. Roar! A zombie rushed up as soon as it got up from the ground, and the speed was actually faster than ordinary people running with all their strength. Da-da-da. The soldiers fired again and again, but it had no effect except to punch some blood holes in its body. The zombie rushed forward, and the hands that had mutated into sharp claws easily cut the soldier's helmet and cut his head in half. At this time, the soldier who was first sprayed by the purple poisonous mist stood up again, and he howled and rushed towards his former comrades in arms. "Reese! Reese, what are you doing?" His teammates shouted, but then kicked him away. This kind of temporarily mutated zombie poses a very limited threat to the Delta troops, but seeing their former comrades in arms become like this, the psychological blow to them is fatal. Head. Hit their heads. The two middle-level experimenters in the bronze group in the team also reminded loudly, and shot the zombies in the head at the same time. Puff. The .44 caliber Desert Eagle in the hands of the experimenter shot the headshot of the zombie in front of him, but unexpectedly, the headshot zombie was still moving, and it was about to knock him down. His teammates behind him pulled him away, and the M401 assault rifle swept wildly, finally knocking down the zombie to the ground, but even so, it was still crawling forward. What is this? Why can't they be killed? Why can't they be killed? The soldiers of the Delta Force began to get a little nervous. They were trained to kill, but no one ever told them how to kill a corpse. Don't hit the head. Hit the legs first. Hit the legs. Paralyze their mobility. Zhang Xingwen immediately corrected his previous misunderstanding, and only then did he understand that the zombies whose heads were shot can also move. After all, the Delta Force is one of the most elite special forces in the United States. After stabilizing their position, they began to shoot the legs of these berserk zombies one by one. As long as they paralyzed their ability to move, the rest would be easy. But apparently this is just the beginning. Boom. 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 Several large holes were suddenly blasted in the wall on the second floor of the hall, and all of them were directional blasts. Countless blasted rubble flew towards the Delta soldiers like bullets. At the same time, the U.S. Delta team appeared behind the wall. They were not polite, raised their weapons and fired a burst. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Dense bullets hit from all directions, and the location chosen by the U.S. team just happened to be able to cover every corner of the hall, and no place was safe at all. The Delta Force soldiers had no idea they were coming out from behind the walls. They carefully checked every corner, but they didn't check behind the wall. They fell into a deadlock in an instant. Although there are only 7 people in the U.S., their firepower distribution is very clever, and except for Chen Yuyan, their marksmanship is very accurate. At the same time as the gunshots sounded, 4 or 5 Delta soldiers were immediately knocked to the ground by the bullets. Retreat! Retreat! Zhang Xingwen yelled. He quickly took out a revolver-specific loader from his belt, and replaced the M-500 revolver with 5 red bullets. Then he shot back, boom. The bullet exploded on the second floor immediately, and Looper and Bertha in that direction were immediately blown away by the shockwave of the explosion. However, they chose the position very cleverly and reacted extremely quickly, so they were only a little dizzy from the blast. Boom! Boom! Zhang Xingwen fired a few more shots, and a series of explosions immediately forced the U.S. back. But the Ghost also took the opportunity to shoot with one shot. Boom! Zhang Xingwen turned his head in an instant reaction, and the blood exploded on his shoulder. He was immediately knocked down by the powerful impact of the bullet. Countless bullets hit the place where he fell to the ground just now. Even if his M-500 is modified, it can't fire too many red bullets. This kind of bullets is what he got in a very funny world. That's right, the bullets of the Golden Gunner in domestic Lingling paint. And in order to get this kind of bullet, Zhang Xingwen was almost played into autism by Master Seeing. However, this kind of bullet is very unstable, and the high temperature generated during firing will cause great damage to the barrel, so the Golden Gunner can only change the bullet once with one shot. For the convenience of fighting, Zhang Xingwen used a modified M-500 revolver to fire. Although it is much more convenient, it is easy to damage the barrel. As soon as he noticed that the opponent's firepower had weakened, Chen Yuyan immediately jumped out of the bunker, and shouted loudly while running wildly, "Victor!" There was no response, but Chen Yuyan understood that he had heard it. At this time, the Delta troops had been beaten to pieces, and only half of the 30 men remained at most, and the rest retreated hastily. Level experimenters, then the rest of the Delta forces meet on the felt board. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 42. 42 No Casualties. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. The exchange of fire was still going on, and the Delta troops retreated in a hurry, leaving corpses all over the hall. In fact, if Zhang Xingwen hadn't fired a series of red explosive bullets to temporarily force the U.S.S back, the Delta troops would have been completely wiped out. Retreat. Retreat quickly. The soldiers of the Delta force retreated while dragging the moaning wounded. Legs. My legs. The screams of wounded soldiers kept coming, and they fell to the ground and screamed while covering their bloody wounds. The people in the U.S.S are very experienced. They will deliberately leave some soldiers instead of killing them directly, but injure and maim them. In order to save these wounded soldiers, the Delta force will take more lives. Give up the wounded. Retreat first. Zhang Xingwen said loudly. The Delta soldiers also reacted immediately, and they left the wounded one after another and quickly evacuated the hall. And the remaining berserk zombies immediately turned their targets to the wounded soldiers, pounced on them and began to bite. The power of the berserk zombies far exceeds that of ordinary people, and their speed is also extremely fast. These soldiers cannot fight alone in normal times, let alone the situation of being beaten and disabled. An even more miserable scream came from the wounded soldier's mouth, and the hall was a hell on earth. Zombies pounce on the wounded soldiers, eating their flesh and blood alive. Captain Wells was staring outside, and wanted to rush over several times, but was held back by Zhang Xingwen. Don't go. There is a trap inside. Do you want to catch everyone? I want to kill them. Kill them. Captain Wells yelled frantically, his eyes were red, he turned his head and stared at Zhang Xingwen and shouted, I want to kill them. How do I do it? You know what they are doing, right? There are not many people in the USS, but each of them can be said to be the top killing machine in the world. In the army, each of them is like a soldier king. We have lost the opportunity, so we can only temporarily retreat and ask for reinforcements. Zhang Xingwen said while spraying first aid spray on the gunshot wound on his shoulder. Somewhat ironically, he used the same spray made by Umbrella. Fortunately, the distance was relatively short just now. At that moment, he had a premonition of danger and tilted his head. The SV-98 sniper rifle of the Ghost shot directly through his shoulder, penetrating the wound. Given his physical strength, it was not fatal, so he sprayed first aid spray. The wound recovered quickly after the dose. Our task is to meet William Birkin and obtain samples of the secret project. Now the task has not been completed and 20 brothers have been picked up. Now how do you tell us to retreat? Wells yelled. Be careful. Zhang Xingwen suddenly saw those berserk zombies following him, and quickly pulled Captain Wells behind him, raised his M-500 revolver and fired 3 times, smashing the upper body of a zombie. However, from the corner of his eye, he noticed a black shadow rushing over from the slanting stab. Da-da-da-da. The gunshot rang out, and a Delta soldier next to him was immediately knocked down to the ground. Zhang Xingwen's premonition saved him again, and he turned over instantly and shot the M-500 pistol, but then he felt his arm was hit hard, and the pistol flew out of his hand involuntarily. The person who came was Chun Yuyan. He approached Zhang Xingwen, missed his pistol, and then grabbed his wrist and yanked it. The MP-5 in his hand fired continuously at the Delta soldiers next to him. Emptied all the bullets in the magazine, and knocked down 2 soldiers. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a cold light flashing by, and quickly leaned back, only to see a sharp blade protruding from Zhang Xingwen's other pistol, cutting across his nose close to his nose. Zhang Xingwen took the opportunity to break free, and the front of his M-500 pistol was equipped with a retractable alloy blade, which could also exert deadly power in close combat. Realizing that the knife was missed, he instantly kicked Chen Yuyan's waist with a side kick. However, what Zhang Xingwen didn't expect at all was that when he saw Chen Yuyan lift his leg up to meet him, he instantly felt his shin bone split open. Zhang Xingwen's gaze began to be a little frightened. Why is this person so powerful? Are you from the Silver Group? Zhang Xingwen turned pale with shock. He has undergone physical strengthening 4 times and learned a lot of fighting skills, but he didn't take advantage of Chen Yuyan at all. No, he was even suppressed by him. Chen Yuyan was too lazy to talk to him, so he pushed Zhang Xingwen away suddenly, held the gun blade in his hand with the MP-5 in his hand, pulled out the dagger, and instantly unfolded with all his strength. He already has a wealth of fighting experience, plus he was specially trained by Death Hank on Nuckford Island for more than a month. His fighting skills are even more terrifying, and it can even be said that only Victor and Rupier can compare in the USS. Zhang Xingwen's shoulder injury was even more irresistible, only to see the dagger in Chen Yuyan's hand appearing like a poisonous snake, and several collisions were all chopped at Zhang Xingwen's force point. With a bang, the blade of the gun flew out of his hand, and then the military dagger sank directly into his throat. Withdraw. Quickly withdraw. Seeing that Zhang Xingwen was easily killed by Chen Yuyan, Captain Wells finally made up his mind and ordered loudly. Retreat to Huangquan Road. A gloomy voice suddenly sounded beside him. Captain Wells turned pale with fright. He didn't know when there was an extra person beside him. Turning around, I only saw a face hidden behind a pig-like gas mask, and eagle-like eyes behind the lens. Swish. With a flash of cold light, Captain Wells only felt a pain in his throat, and the blood and strength all over his body were withdrawn quickly. He desperately clutched his bloody throat, fell to the ground and convulsed. Run! Someone yelled, and the soldiers of the Delta Force finally lost their formation and retreated quickly. However, as soon as they ran to the door, there was a sudden violent explosion, and the metal door was blown up and instantly crushed the front soldiers below. Immediately after Beltway's huge body came in, he kicked a soldier 5 or 6 meters away, holding a grenade launcher in his hand, and shot him in the head. Boom! The violent explosion repelled the soldiers, only to see black shadows rushing in quickly. Be other members of the U.S.S. There was a bloodthirsty gleam in their eyes, and they rushed over with daggers like wolves into a flock of sheep without using guns, and slaughtered them wantonly. U.S.S. Delta Squad, nicknamed Wolves. The Delta Force, known as one of the most elite special forces in the world, faced off against Umbrella's Special Operations Team, USS 30 against 7. In the end, the Delta Force was completely wiped out, and there were no casualties in the U.S.S. The last Delta soldier fell to the ground clutching his throat wound in despair. The battle was over. The berserk zombies couldn't wait to pounce on the corpses on the ground, but they ignored Chen Yuyan and the others. Looking coldly at the bloody scene with 4 eyes, he took out a remote control from his backpack and pressed it, and those berserk zombies collapsed immediately, turning into real corpses one after another. Chen Yuyan watched Xian's movements with great interest. Xian glanced at him, and unexpectedly explained to him for the first time, Ne-alpha parasites are used to control these B.O.Ws. I didn't ask you. Chen Yuyan insisted. Then just pretend I'm talking to a pig. After Xian finished speaking, he gave him a blank look, and walked away. Chen Yuyan pondered for a while. Why is there something wrong with what this petite girl said? It's still a lack of training. Beltway came over and patted him on the shoulder, and said earnestly. Thank you for the 1000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. Thank you Tees fans for the reward of 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 43. 43 William Birkin. In a sealed glass cabinet, two mechanical arms are working smoothly, and they precisely put a spiral glass container into the card slot. The instrument above was also working, and after complicated procedures and chemical reactions, some viscous light blue liquid began to ooze out. After the liquid is injected into the spiral container, a robotic arm seals the container and places it in a metal box. Beside the glass cabinet, a thin, middle-aged man was frantically manipulating the machine. Because he hasn't seen the sun for a long time, his complexion is a little pale and his appearance is thin, but he has soft blonde hair combed into an outdated middle-parted hairstyle. He is William Birkin, a genius researcher at Umbrella Corporation. 10 years ago, in order to gain power, he colluded with Spencer, one of the 3 directors of the company, and together with Albert Wesker, murdered James Marcus, one of the 3 directors of the company, and seized his T-virus research data. And successfully completed the research and development of the T-virus, and became the company's biggest celebrity in one fell swoop. But he was still not satisfied. He wanted to develop a super virus that was completely his own, so he proposed the G project to the company. The company immediately agreed, and because the Acre Institute where he worked was too old, they specially built a state-of-the-art research center in Raccoon City to allow him to fully display his strengths. It's ready. It's ready. This is my life's work. G-virus. When it comes out, the development of biological and chemical weapons will be completely in my hands. In this field, I am God. William Birkin said slightly morbidly. I believe James Marcus thought so when he developed the T-virus. A cold voice said from the side, but it was a man dressed as a doctor. Yes, and then I killed him. I completed the research on the T-virus. My name, William Birkin, was written on the developer of the T-virus. William Birkin's thin face gradually became grim. Unlike that idiot Marcus. I have a thorough plan. The Americans will be my biggest backer. The Delta Force arrived 10 minutes ago. But now the surrounding communication has been cut off, we are in danger. The speaker was a tall and slender woman who had been staying next to William. She was also wearing a white coat and seemed to be his assistant. Impossible. Although the Umbrella Company has secretly trained some special forces, how could it be the opponent of the Delta Force? I have muddied the water as much as possible, and the company should be struggling with the virus leak now. William said loudly. Then, he manipulated the machine to fill the last bottle of G-virus, then took out the metal box from the airtight glass cabinet, and held it in his arms like a baby. Let's go. Taylor, Nicole. As long as you can connect with the US military, we won. The pair of men and women named Taylor and Nicole looked at each other, but their eyes were full of despair. After they came to this world, they quickly gained the trust of William Birkin with the knowledge of biology and virology they learned from other worlds, and wanted to get some benefits around the central character of the plot. In fact, they got it, and from William they learned about the T-virus and G-virus that ordinary people could only dream of. I believe that as long as they can return to the original world, they will soon be able to create a biochemical army with this knowledge. But now, they have to face the most terrible test, the killer sent by Umbrella Corporation, Special Operations Force, U.S.S. The system prompts that came just like swiping the screen just now hit their hearts like a heavy hammer. Experimenter Zhang Xingwen has died, the place of death, Raccoon City Research Institute. They knew Zhang Xingwen. They had met before when William was in contact with the United States. They also knew that he was a high-level experimenter in the Bronze Group. Because they were both experimenters, the two parties quickly reached an agreement to save William. Bo Kim goes out, changes the plot, gets the G-virus. But, not only the 20 or so experimenters, but even Zhang Xingwen died. How terrible is the U.S.S? Tyler and Nicole knew they had nowhere to go. Over there, William Birkin has already pressed the door of the laboratory, and he urged, "What are you still doing in a daze? Go. There is a secret passage in the research institute leading directly to the Raccoon City police station. Let's go out there." Taylor and Nicole quickly followed. They waved to the two U.B.C.S soldiers waiting at the door and said, "Follow us and protect us." However, the two soldiers did not respond or move. Taylor turned his head abruptly, and found that two soldiers were slowly sitting on the ground leaning against the wall, with a long blood stain drawn on the back of their heads on the wall. They are dead. As if a bucket of ice water had been poured from head to toe, both Taylor and Nicole were stiff, standing there daring not to move, and their legs began to tremble slightly. A group of soldiers wearing black combat uniforms with the umbrella logo, pig face gas masks, and red lenses with infrared imaging quietly appeared in front of them, and the MP-5 submachine guns in their hands were coldly aimed at them. U.S. Alpha Squad. Death Hank. Dr. William Birkin, we need to talk. Hank said very calmly to William, who was holding the box tightly. Taylor's breathing became short of breath. He tightly held the injection gun in his pocket, and muttered to himself, "How is it possible? How is this possible? If you want to die, let's die together." Here, the U.S. Delta team where Chunyuan is located has completed the task. The Captain Looper opened the communication and said, "This is the Delta team. We have wiped out all the invading US troops. Now there are no survivors in the research institute. We are coming soon. Join you." However, at this time, the commander's deep and majestic voice suddenly cut into the communication, "Delta team, stand by and prevent other intruders from invading, and wait for the Alpha team to complete the task." Looper frowned, a little confused about the task, but he still replied, "Delta team received it, we will stand by where we are." Chunyuan shook his head secretly. He also wanted to get in touch with William Birkin to see if he could grab a sample of the G-virus in the chaos, but this order directly cut off his thoughts. However, although this order seems reasonable on the surface, it seems that something is not quite right. Chunyuan's 10-year undercover career made his intuition very keen, and he always felt that there seemed to be a hand controlling him from behind. Is it the top management of Umbrella Corporation? At the same time, in the Caucasus Mountains region of Russia, in the secret base of Umbrella Corporation, an unusually burly man in his 50s, wearing a classic aristocratic military uniform, with neatly combed gray hair, was standing in front of the computer, looking at the figure in the computer lightly. It was a man in a white suit, a person wearing a white top hat and round sunglasses. "I don't quite understand why you want to directly interfere with the actions of the U.S. Ombudsman, Holger Baker." The man's voice was deep and forceful, as if a lion was roaring, and his whole body was full of lion the same domineering. "That's right, he is the one who has been hiding behind the scenes, the supreme commander of the U.S. As I said, the Delta squad in the U.S. is not credible, so keeping them out of contact with William Birkin is the best option. Commander, Colonel Sergei Vladimir." Holger Baker. He raised the brim of his hat and said, "Of course he didn't say, the most important thing is, don't let the experimenter Chunyuan in the U.S. come into contact with William Birkin. As a tool, you have to be a tool obediently, but don't think too much about it." The smile on the corner of Holger Baker's mouth looked a little cold. "If I didn't approve of your judgment, I wouldn't have given you this chance." Sergei Vladimir said lightly, "However, there will be no next time. I don't want you people from White Umbrella too much meddling in the affairs of our Red Umbrella. You just shut down your R/U0026D department properly. This is, naturally. I'm dealing with some things on Nuckford Island, and I'll return to Raccoon City tomorrow. I will try my best to collect enough B.O.W actual combat data. It will be very interesting. This is, Oswell, a direct order from Lord Spencer. Holger Baker laughed. A sneer appeared on the corner of Sergei Vladimir's mouth. Then I wish you good fortune. Thank you for the reward of 1,000 starting coins from Chuangshan Wang. Thanks to Tees fans and book friend 2019011908160343 for the reward of 100 starting coins. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 44. 44 Take a sharp turn. After receiving the order, the Delta team had no choice but to stand by near the hall of the Institute. Chen Yuyan rummaged through the bodies of those soldiers of the Delta Force, trying to find something useful. In the end he did find. The scan is complete, the data of the high explosive bullet has been entered into the infinite base, and it can be manufactured. High explosive bullets, .50 caliber, can cause an explosion equivalent to 100 G of TNT equivalent after firing, which is equivalent to an ordinary grenade. Disadvantages: the bullet is extremely unstable, easy to die, and the ordinary material barrel is difficult to support continuous firing. Construction resources: metal 40 G, refined tiberium ore 30 G. Scanning is complete, the data of the modified M-500 revolver has been entered into the infinite base and can be manufactured. And in the interface of the infinite base in Chen Yuyan's mind, there is an additional technology tree of domestic Lingling paint. Chen Yuyan has seen this movie, but the technology in it is nothing, just some very primitive mechanical prosthetic transformations, and this kind of high explosive bullets, oh yes, and weird guns. Looking at Zhang Xingguan's corpse, Chen Yuyan began to wonder whether this guy had tasted the taste of strange guns in that world. Forget it, considering that he also contributed a very useful technology, just don't think too badly about him. This kind of high explosive bullet is indeed very useful, easy to carry, and powerful. The .50 caliber is almost 12.7 mm, which is the caliber of a heavy machine gun. Think about it, if a heavy machine gun uses such high explosive bullets to fire wildly, what kind of frenzied and terrifying firepower would it be? In comparison, the shortcoming of easy wear and tear of the barrel is simply insignificant. But while he was quite happy with these gains, Chen Yuyan always had a stone in his heart: William Birkin. Even without the documents left by Mocha, he knew that William Birkin turned into a super mutant creature in the end, and almost wiped out the Alpha team. So now, with the intervention of experimenters, will this scenario still happen? He thought about it, and it seemed possible. Because it turns out that ordinary experimenters can't be their U.S.S opponents at all, and Hank's strength is at least at the level of the Silver Group according to his estimation. Under such circumstances, even if William Birkin had the help of experimenters, it was impossible to escape the pursuit. And at this time, what will the experimenter who is driven into a desperate situation do? In fact, it's easy to imagine, because the G-virus is in front of you, and this William Birkin, who can become a super mutant creature that can wipe out the Alpha team, is also in front of you. Then they are likely to fight desperately. Even if there is no misfire in the plot, they will deliberately infect William Birkin. In other words, if there are no experimenters there, it's fine; if there are, then an accident will almost certainly happen. But the question now is, how to warn? You can't tell Looper that you know the plot, can you? Just as Chen Yuyan was thinking about it, suddenly a violent explosion came from inside the laboratory, accompanied by the shaking of the earth and mountains. Everyone in the Delta team jumped up in an instant, picked up their weapons and aimed at the direction of the explosion, which was, the deepest part of the research institute, the direction of William Birkin's laboratory. What happened? Alpha Squad? Please answer. Alpha Squad? Looper asked very eagerly in the communication. Hey, what kind of monster are you? Hey, don't pass me. There was a scream mixed in the noise from the communication. There are also messy gunshots. Alpha Squad? Alpha Squad? Please answer. Looper roared loudly, but there was no other voice on the communication side except noise. Something went wrong. We need to go to support immediately. Ghost said in a deep voice. Don't go. Chen Yuyan yelled suddenly, and everyone looked at him. His face was a little ugly, and he said in a deep voice, first, the commander's order is to let us stand by on the spot. Second, according to the communication situation, the Alpha team is already in danger. Think about the death of Hank and the Alpha team. Strength, they are all wiped out in a short period of time, then this opponent is absolutely invincible to us. Hearing Chen Yuyan's words, Looper also fell into deep thought. At this time, Bertha stood up and supported, I also agree with the plan of retreating immediately. Four Eyes also nodded in agreement. If it was before, she would have to go and see the situation, but now there is Tiberium mine in front of her, so her desire for viruses is much smaller. However, at this moment, an indifferent voice suddenly cut into the communication, but it was not the voice of the previous commander. I only heard him say, Delta team, the Alpha team has lost contact, you immediately go to confirm the recovery of the G-virus sample. If the Alpha team fails, then you must bring the G-virus sample back. This is a direct order from the company's senior management. If this mission is successful, each of you will get a $1 million bonus. It turned out that the company's top management directly issued orders over the commander. Chen Yuyan felt a shock in his heart. Looper's face was not very good, she replied, Delta team received. After that, the communication was closed. Afterwards, Looper looked around at everyone, and said slowly, the confirmation of the identification code is indeed a direct order from the company's senior management. There is nothing to say, it is our basic principle to use money to do things. Let's go. Hu Beltway blew a long whistle and said, haha. That's $1 million. I've accepted this mission. Ha 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 ha. The people in the Delta team have different personalities and specialties, but they also have one thing in common, they are greedy for money, otherwise they would not accept the employment of Umbrella Company to do those shady and dirty jobs. After determining the target, everyone immediately rushed towards the laboratory. Along the way, I found that this place has suffered very serious damage. It seems that someone detonated a large number of bombs here. It should be an explosion caused by the destruction of hydrogen sulfide storage equipment. Hydrogen sulfide is used to produce inorganic sulfides in the manufacturing process of some medicines, and even BOW4 Eyes said, this substance is highly toxic. Be careful not to let it, our helmets are broken. Chen Yuyan and the others nodded. All the way into William Birkin's laboratory, the place is already in a mess, there are many corpses of U.B.C.S soldiers lying around outside, but the inside of the laboratory is full of smoke. Entering the interior of the laboratory, they immediately found several fragmented corpses, and the uniforms were all from the U.S Alpha squad. Moreover, a large hole was broken in the ground, and the bottom of the hole seemed to be a sewer. Headquarters. The Alpha team has been wiped out. Judging from the condition of the corpse, it should have been torn apart by the claws of a huge beast. Looper said in a deep voice. Immediately confirm the situation of the G-virus sample. The company's top management didn't care about the life and death of the Alpha team at all, they just eagerly asked about the G-virus sample. The box containing the G-virus sample has been damaged, and the virus has leaked. An alarm is issued immediately. This is the most serious level 5 biohazard incident. There was also a hint of panic in the cold-eyed voice. There will be another chapter later. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 45. 45 Disorderly Mutation. Chen Yuyan looked at a metal box that fell in the center of the laboratory. The box seemed to be crushed by a huge object. The glass container inside was crushed, and the light blue liquid flowed all over the floor. Not only that, there is a sewer under a big hole that was blown out next to it, and the flies, mosquitoes, mice, and cockroaches in it may become carriers of the virus, and then spread the virus to the entire city. Asshole. Asshole. Humming virus leak. I want a sample of the G virus. A sample of the G virus. Delta team, I order you to find the sample for me at all costs. Must find it? The top executives of the company seem to be a little frustrated. The sample has been damaged, and we haven't seen more samples at the scene. Looper said that the worst virus leak has been confirmed here, and she doesn't want to stay here any longer. Asshole. /U0026, UN #UN %#UN. There was a burst of cursing from the other end of the communication, followed by a click, and the communication was cut off. It should be that the communicator was smashed there. I can prepare some antidotes and sprinkle them on these viruses, but these are antidotes for the T virus. I don't know if they are effective for the G virus. Four Eyes said, took out some small bottles from his body and started to prepare. At this time, Chen Yuyan suddenly found a person sitting at the foot of the wall. He was wearing a doctor's attire, his chest was slightly heaving, and he seemed to be alive. He walked over and squatted down, tried his breath, it was very weak, so he asked, "Are you a researcher here? What happened?" He, cough. He, the man seemed to be laughing, and he said intermittently, "Everyone must die. Everyone must die." He, cough, 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 a mutated William Birkin is not enough, I want to. He. This man is an experimenter. Chen Yuyan's pupils constricted instantly, and he saw the injection gun in his hand. Is it, really as I imagined? The experimenter who was cornered by the Alpha team chose to inject William Birkin with the G virus as a last-ditch effort? But, what did he mean by to? What to? Say. To what? Chen Yuyan grabbed his shoulder and roared angrily. He, the experimenter opened his mouth, revealing his bloody lips and tongue covered in glass shards. He actually chewed up a bottle of G virus in his mouth and swallowed it. Boom. Chen Yuyan shot him in the head, and then shouted with all his strength, "Retreat! Retreat! Get out of here! Get out of here!" In the next second, he felt as if he was hit head-on by a train, and was sent flying with a bang. Bang! He slammed into the table hard, and the metal experiment table was crushed by him, which shows how terrifying the force of this blow is. I only saw that the hand that the experimenter used to hit Chen Yuyan mutated rapidly, and countless disgusting mutated tissues began to pile up, getting bigger and bigger, and finally turned into a large group full of barbs. Something like a giant hammer. Not only that, in the middle of the sledgehammer, a big ferocious mouth grew out, which was densely covered with teeth. Not only that, the experimenter's blown head suddenly spewed out countless stinky juices and intestine-like things like a volcanic eruption, and then began to swell, gather, twist, and split like petals. 4 petals, became a new head. Its body is also constantly mutating, but perhaps because the G virus is swallowed directly, most of the mutations are concentrated in the upper body, and suddenly the monster fell to the ground because of its top heavy. But soon, it grew another claw from its back, supporting its body with the other hand. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. All Delta team members opened fire instantly, and countless bullets poured towards this monster like rain. However, these bullets hit it like a mud cow into the sea, and it didn't have any effect at all. As the monster's body squirmed continuously, the bullets that had been driven into its body were quickly squeezed out. Quick retreat. We don't have enough firepower to destroy it. Chen Yuyan got up from the ground and said loudly, enduring the sharp pain in his chest. The members of the Delta team did not hesitate, and immediately retreated quickly while shooting. When Beltway ran over, he gave Chen Yuyan a strong pull, so that Chen Yuyan could keep up with them and not be left behind. At this moment, the part of the monster's throat suddenly split open, and a huge one-eyed eye grew out of it, staring at them firmly. Without any language or howling, this monster just crawled over quickly under the support of the claw on its back and its left hand, at no slow speed. And the other hand that turned into a giant hammer with the mouth kept waving in front of it, and the 2 feet that had not yet mutated dragged behind its body like rags, pulling out a long blood stain. While running, Xian took out the injection gun she carried with her, stuffed several bottles filled with purple medicine into the barrel, and hit the corpses of the U.B.C.S soldiers outside the laboratory with a few bangs. I only saw that these corpses quickly climbed up and turned into more powerful berserk zombies. They roared and rushed towards the monster. The mutated claws of the berserk zombie scratched countless scars on the monster's body, and stinky juice flowed from it. However, this monster didn't feel the attack of the berserk zombies, as if it was scratching an itch. It swung the sledgehammer violently, and immediately smashed several berserk zombies into the air. The big mouth on the sledgehammer took advantage of the situation to bite one of them and shoot it. Everyone in the Delta team also took this opportunity to run wildly to distance themselves. Beltway took out a few bombs and quickly set the delay fuses and threw them on the ground. Bertha also seized the opportunity to inject a shot of epinephrine into Chen Yuyan. His ribs had obviously been broken, and it would be difficult to sustain without the help of epinephrine. Boom! 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 A series of explosions came from behind, and it was the monster that triggered the bomb set by Beltway. Even in the process of fleeing in a hurry, Beltway skillfully dropped the bomb on the supporting points of the surrounding walls, immediately blowing up a section of the corridor, blocking the monster behind. They are almost close to the exit elevator. Victor was the first to rush over, but he didn't enter. Instead, he opened the elevator and waited at the door with a gun, ready to cover his teammates at any time. Although the U.S. Delta team is a team piled up with money, the reason why this team can have such a terrifying combat effectiveness is that they understand better than anyone else that only with their teammates can they earn money. More money. They will not betray their teammates at the expense of profit. On the contrary, they have an unparalleled tacit understanding. Looper, Four Eyes, Bertha, the members of the Delta team walked up to the elevator one by one. Chen Yuyan also ran up, and Four Eyes gave him a hand. Chen Yuyan is in good condition now because of the adrenaline injection, and Xiangxin scratched her palm. Finally, Victor, who was guarding the door, walked in and was about to close the door. At the same time, Beltway also detonated all his last bombs. Amidst the violent explosion, the elevator doors slowly closed. Sudden. Boom. There was a loud noise, followed by a creaking metal friction sound, and the elevator got stuck. Then a huge figure appeared at the elevator door. William Birkin. Seeing this figure, Chen Yuyan blurted out. "Thank you for the 1,000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. Thank you for the 200 starting point coins that you can reward by telling the truth. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 46. 46 Operation Failure. The huge figure standing in front of the elevator was William Birkin. All I saw was that his body had soared to a height of more than 2 meters, his right shoulder had completely mutated into a huge claw, and there was a huge eyeball on his shoulder. In contrast, his head and the left side of his body are much normal, so he can still be recognized. Obviously, he is a mutation of the G virus injected into his right shoulder. However, at this time, William Birkin's eyes were filled with scarlet and bloodthirsty light, and his chaotic eyes were full of hatred. Umbrella. Die. Die. As he spoke, he raised his right hand that had mutated into a giant claw more than 1 meter long. Da 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 da. Countless bullets poured over in an instant. The U.S.S members fired without hesitation. And they all aimed at the huge eyeball on William Birkin's right shoulder in unison. Countless bullets splashed the eyeball juice, and the eyeball twitched violently. William Birkin screamed loudly, took 2 steps back and couldn't help letting go of the elevator. The elevator that lost its limit suddenly began to rise, but it didn't take long to rise. Boom. There was another tooth-piercing sound of metal friction, and the elevator was stopped by William Birkin again. And this time, William Birkin was right under the elevator, and Chen Yuyan's weapons couldn't hit him at all. And at this moment, suddenly there was a loud noise from the bombed-out corridor behind, and countless gravels splashed everywhere, and the mutated monster of the experimenter also smashed through the gravel and rushed over. This is already a situation of 10 deaths and no life. The 2 mutated super monsters, William Birkin and the experimenter, were no longer something that could be confronted by conventional firepower, and Chen Yuyan and their only escape elevator was blocked by William. There were bursts of creaking noises from the steel cables above the elevator, and it was obvious that they were about to fail. Once the elevator is pulled down and hunted down by 2 monsters, even if they are the U.S.S with super fighting power, it is impossible for them to survive. Chen Yuyan gritted his teeth suddenly, and said loudly, "You guys cover me. Don't let the one behind me get close." After speaking, he jumped directly from the elevator. "Zero. What are you doing?" Looper exclaimed. The 4 eyes were more direct. She took a step forward and wanted to grab Chen Yuyan's hand, but it was still a step too late. She couldn't help lying on the edge of the elevator. Her eyes were a little complicated. The moment Chen Yuyan jumped down, he took out the 100 ml tiberium mine that he and 4 eyes had refined before and swallowed it in one gulp. Click, 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 his teeth chewed on the green tiberium crystals, the sharp crystals tore and cut his gums, the bloody smell filled his mouth, and there was an unbearable sting in his mouth. He saw William Birkin holding onto the pillar next to him with one hand, and holding the elevator tightly with the other. Chen Yuyan didn't care too much, kicked it in the face from the sky, and at the same time picked up the Saiga-12 shotgun and pressed it against its face and fired several times. Immediately beat William to a bloody mess. Roar! William roared angrily, and slapped Chen Yuyan on the ground with a slap. Then he turned his head and stared at the elevator, and the right hand that mutated into a giant claw exerted force again, even pulling the elevator until it deformed. Under the competition of 2 huge forces, the steel cables above began to break one by one. "Fire! Attack the one behind!" Looper yelled violently, took a step forward, picked up the assault rifle, and fired at the mutated monster of the experimenter behind him. The others followed immediately. Since Chen Yuyan wanted them to cover and block the one behind, there was only so much they could do. Dense bullets hit the monster, and the U.S.S members also showed their precise shooting skills. Most of the bullets poured on the huge eyeball at the monster's throat. The monster was finally beaten back again and again, and had to cover its eyes with one hand, but this way it only had one hand for support, and it couldn't climb up temporarily. The elevator was about to fail, and at this critical moment, a black figure suddenly jumped up and punched William's arm fiercely. Boom! William's huge claw was actually shaken by this punch. At this moment, Chen Yuyan only felt that his body was about to explode, and the wound in his mouth that was torn by the tiberium crystal didn't know when he no longer felt it, and he didn't know whether it was numb or healed. But only one thing is certain, he feels full of strength all over his body. And if this power is not vented, he seems to be sustained until he explodes. Drink! Chen Yuyan yelled loudly, and punched William's hand with a punch. His strength was so strong that it was unimaginable. When he punched down, the wall on the other side was even cracked. Come! William roared angrily, let go of his hand, and the elevator jumped up again. It quickly hooked the steel structure pillar of the elevator next to it with its sharp claws, and freed up a hand to grab Chen Yuyan fiercely. Chen Yuyan was almost insane, his eyes shone with a light green light, and the power of the tiberium crystal was completely concentrated in his hands. Boom! Punch! Boom! Punch! Boom! Punch! William's mutated claw that grabbed the elevator was punched until it cracked, and the yellow liquid mixed with the blood continued to ooze out. Obviously, even the blood began to mutate. William's hands became looser and looser, and the elevator took the two of them up continuously. William's claws hooked on the steel column kept rubbing and shooting out a lot of sparks. Die! Chen Yuyan felt that the strength in his body had finally started to fade, and he punched hard with all his strength. Boom! William's mutated claw was finally interrupted violently by him. At the same time, 3 round grenades fell, passing William's scarlet eyes, and 3 small pull tabs fell at the same time. Umbrella! William Birkin let out a final roar, and finally couldn't hold on to the elevator anymore, and fell directly from a height that had risen tens of meters. Boom! Boom! A violent explosion erupted in the elevator shaft, and the flames rose dozens of meters high along the terrain. The elevator finally slid upwards smoothly, leading the members of the U.S. Delta team up towards the exit of the research institute. However, in the elevator, everyone looked at the floor and remained silent. "He's dead," said Beltway slowly. "He's very powerful," Victor just said lightly. "No. He must not be dead," the usually taciturn Four-Eyed said firmly. She squatted down and began to pry the floor of the elevator with the dagger, without even realizing that the tip of the dagger was broken. At this moment, the ghost suddenly shook, and said in a deep voice, "There is a voice from below." Looper's eyes brightened, and he said loudly, "Help!" Everyone frantically pried open the floor, and they saw Chen Yuyan hanging under the elevator, beating on the elevator feebly. If it wasn't for the 4 eyes that pried a corner of the floor open just now, the others really wouldn't be able to hear it. Pulling Chen Yuyan up hurriedly, Bertha quickly tore off his clothes to treat him. But Chen Yuyan raised one hand, gave a thumbs up, and said weakly, "We survived." The elevator kept going up, and a message was being sent in the secret channel. "This is the U.S. Delta team. The operation failed, the Alpha team was wiped out, the G virus sample was destroyed, and the virus has probably spread through the sewers." William Birkin and another researcher injected themselves with the G virus, which mutated into a huge monster that was wandering around the research institute. All preparations need to be made immediately to prevent the spread of biohazards. Thank you for the 1000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 47. 47 Shadow of Death. On September 23, 1998 at 5:34 a.m., the underground drainage system in Raccoon City. Squeak. A few mice were looking for food in the mud and garbage in the sewer, and they were fighting for a small piece of rotten meat. This is a very normal situation. However, when one of the mice raised its head, it was impressive to see that the mouse's eyes were nothing but gray eyes. "Look at that piece of rotten meat again, it is a piece of incomplete human palm." These rats fought and bit each other, and gradually ran deep into the sewer. However, when they were squeaking and fighting, they were suddenly blocked by a large black shadow. And that large black shadow is surprisingly countless cockroaches. The size of these cockroaches has become as big as the palm of an adult, and the number is unimaginable. The weak screams of the rats when they were torn apart did not cause any waves in the sewer that had become hell. Amidst the undercurrent of the strong preying on the weak, the shadow of death was gradually spreading. At 12:26 a.m. on the 23rd, the garbage disposal plant in the back mountain of Raccoon City. Wow! A person wearing a biochemical protective suit dumped a bucket of green experimental residue into the waste pool, only to see that the waste pool was completely full, and in the weird green liquid, there were countless the remains of the experimental subjects, and even the corpses were floating up and down. The man threw away the metal bucket panting, and staggered back to the building of the processing plant. After washing his whole body with countless disinfectants, he took off his protective clothing, revealing his pale face. "Let's go, Lanik, go get something to eat." "Damn, I haven't been sleeping very well lately." The man came to an office and pushed a colleague who was sleeping on the desk. Yet his colleague was not moving at all. This person pushed his colleague, and even his own consciousness was a little blurred. In places he didn't see, the capillaries on his body were gradually turning black. Plop! The man fell to the ground and never got up again. In the other offices and factory areas of the waste treatment plant, dozens of people were scattered all over the place, and in a closed room, there were more than a dozen body bags, which undoubtedly contained corpses. What's even more weird is that several of them were carrying body bags, and they were slowly wriggling. The unmanaged waste discharge port is still open, and more wastewater is being discharged. There is even a large amount of liquid flowing down the mountain of waste in one corner. The strange green liquid flows along the mountain, and then gradually seeps into the soil. The surrounding plants are extremely dense. The wastewater continuously flows down the ground, and after being filtered by the sand, it drips down a protruding rock wall again, and has become colorless and transparent. A small white hand took a few drops of liquid, and shivered from the temperature of the liquid, only to see a little girl excitedly raised her hand and said to her mother, "Mom, Mom. Look, there is mountain spring water. It's icy cold." A young mother was sitting on a park bench and rubbing her forehead. When she heard what the little girl said, she patted the little girl's hand and said, "It's all fun, the water on this mountain is not drinkable." "Okay, Mom, I'm a little dizzy, let's go ride the Ferris wheel after I take a rest, okay?" "Okay," the little girl showed an innocent smile. At 1917 on the 23rd, the sewage treatment plant in the Acre Mountain area. After the virus leaked 2 months ago, the sewage treatment plant has been completely shut down by Umbrella Company, but the mountaintop lake next to it that supplies water to the entire Raccoon City is still continuously supplying water. In the main control room of the sewage treatment plant, a few zombies in overalls were wandering around. They turned around aimlessly and were blocked by the gate, so they crowded at the gate and kept banging their heads on the iron gate. In other places, a large number of corpses have begun to rot and smell after more than 2 months, and countless flies are flying everywhere. Inside the water supply plant on the other side of the lake, more than a dozen staff members were lying on the ground, all of them lost consciousness. The water supply machines are still working non-stop, pumping a large amount of water from the lake into the pipeline. No one noticed that a large number of corpses and sewage floating down from the sewage treatment plant were entering the drinking water pipes. 10:09 a.m. on the 24th, Raccoon City Police Department. This police station building converted from a museum looks classic and solemn, with an American flag hanging at the door, and the English abbreviation of the Raccoon City Police Department, the R.P.D. mark. A call to the police came, and the operator picked up the phone. "Hello, this is the R.P.D. office. I see, it's the direction of the city park, right? Biting. Already knocked down, okay, our police officers will be here soon, please cooperate with our actions, and don't let the perpetrators go easily," he said while recording in his notebook. After hanging up the phone, the operator stood up, tore off the page of the notebook, went to an office, and said to the sheriff inside, "Sheriff Marvin Bernard, another report of violent injury has been received. Over there in the city park." A black sheriff with a straight face sat on the stool and shook his head irritably. He looked at the page, stood up and said, "Okay, since the wounder has been subdued by the crowd, let's go call 2 policemen nearby and bring him back." He got up and took a few steps, then turned back to the operator and said, "By the way, you go and call the newcomer who is about to join, Leon S. Kennedy, and ask him to come over to join in a few days. Now our side is really bad. Thorough. As he spoke, he unscrewed a bottle of mineral water and walked out while drinking. In the interrogation room of the police station, it was even more of a mess. Only 4 or 5 handcuffed people were struggling crazily. Bite everyone around. Moreover, their strength was so great that they could not shake the iron bench in the interrogation room. "Sheriff, these people are completely crazy and can't ask anything," a policeman said to Marvin. "It looks like this: lock them up first, and then ask a doctor to come and have a look." Marvin said, "We have already made dozens of calls, but the Raccoon City Municipal Hospital said that they have received a particularly large number of patients in the past 2 days, and many of them have aggressive tendencies. They no longer have any extra manpower," the policeman said. Marvin's face was a little gloomy. He walked to the second floor of the police station, came to the door of the chief's office, knocked on the door and said, "Director Irons, the situation in Raccoon City is very abnormal now. In the past 2 days, the suspected rabies patients have gone berserk and attacked others. The number of cases is increasing and I think we should apply to the state government for support." The office door didn't open, but a man's voice was heard inside shouting, "Can't ask the state government for help. Do you want to discredit our Raccoon City? Then you should at least come out and meet everyone. You have locked yourself inside for several days. People in the police station are panicking now, and you need to take charge of the overall situation." Marvin suppressed the boredom in his heart and said loudly, "Also, shouldn't we be posting a circular telling the public what's going on? What I'm thinking about is not something you low-level police officers can understand. Also, continue to block the news. If it triggers panic throughout the city, then I will take you as a question." Director Irons said loudly, "Notice it's still going to be posted, so let everyone stay in the house and don't come out." Marvin gritted his teeth suddenly, raised his hand and wanted to slam the door hard, but then he sighed again, turned his head and left. "Thank you for the 1,000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. All Heaven's Unlimited Base." Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 48. 48 Raccoon City, Raccoon City. September 25, 1998 at 12:31 a.m. east of Raccoon City, City Park. "Run! Run! They're crazy, crazy!" The people who were walking in the park screamed loudly and fled in all directions. "Don't come here! Don't come here! Ah!" The shrill screams and blood splattered stimulated the nerves of everyone around them. They ran around one after another, and many people chose to call the police. However, the entire park has fallen into a frenzy now. People kept convulsing and fell to the ground, then quickly stood up again and began to attack the people around them like crazy. A couple who were walking, suddenly the woman fell to the ground motionless while walking. Her male companion shouted for help but no one paid attention. After a while, the woman suddenly struggled, then suddenly got up and bit the ground men's hands. "Alice! Alice! I'm Matt. What are you doing?" Wow. He bit me. He bit me." The screams can be heard endlessly, and the bitten injured will quickly stand up and join the ranks of these crazy biters. Those who are infected are increasing, especially those who live near city parks, and most of them are already infected. The police department's previous order to keep citizens at home did not have any effect on curbing the spread of the epidemic, because the drinking water in the entire Raccoon City has been completely polluted. Citizens who were infected and turned into zombies smashed through the glass, rolled down from the windows, and joined the army of zombies. In the Raccoon City Police Department, the calls to the police have been completely exploded, and the number of wounded people is increasing, which has shown a trend of spreading, but the police chief Brian Irons still locks himself in the office and refuses to come out. What's more terrible is that he also locked the ammunition depot of the police station, which left many policemen with only pistols to use. Team A. There are a large number of people infected with rabies near the commercial street. Go to the commercial street immediately for support. This is Timmy. There are too many of them. There are too many. They can't be killed at all. They are not afraid of bullets. Mission Street needs backup. This is Mission Street. There are thousands of rabies. They're getting more and more. Where's the SWAT team? We need backup. Sheriff Marvin Branner looked at the call for help that flew over like snowflakes, with a grim expression on his face. Damn it. What happened? What happened? Why did it happen? The rabies outbreak suddenly broke out in the past few days, and there are records of infection everywhere. Those people are extremely aggressive, and they can't even be shot, said a police officer next to him. Almost all of our people have been sent out now, and there is no spare capacity to deal with these things, another police officer said. The key is to find the source of all these incidents. Where did the infection occur, and why didn't we have any infection? Marvin said fiercely, and suddenly his eyes fell on the mineral water bottle on the table. He suddenly realized, jumped up and said loudly, I see. It's water. Drinking water. We've been busy with work recently, so we all drink mineral water. You mean? The water supply system is polluted? The police officer immediately understood. Ma Wen stood up and said loudly, issuing another announcement, let everyone not drink the water in the water pipe. In addition, inform the citizens of the whole city to take refuge near the police station. Only in this way can we concentrate the police force to protect them. Yes. The police officer immediately turned to do it. At this time Marvin stopped him again and said, also, notify the state government and immediately send the National Guard to support. September 25, 2:32 p.m., Raccoon City City Hall. In the mayor's office, a gray-haired man in his 50s was sitting at his desk, talking on the phone with a heavy expression. Irons, you have to understand, the relationship between you and Umbrella Company, those bad things will kill you sooner or later. So it's useless for you to just hide now, the only thing you can do is to suppress this matter. This person is the mayor of Raccoon City, Michael Warren, who has been mayor for 11 years. He listened to an angry roar from the other end of the phone, and said coldly, I know the virus has spread now, but you have to do it. Arrest everyone who spreads rumors. And destroy everything and security as much as possible. Information about Breera Corporation. He waited for the police chief over there to growl for a while, and then said, I will deal with the state government and the National Guard, you take care of yourself. Let the police block all the roads out of the city. Also, find me as soon as possible daughter, Beverly Warren. Once something happens to her, no matter where you escape to, I will take care of you. After finishing speaking, Michael Warren hung up the phone with a click. His mood was not as calm as before. On the contrary, judging from his violent chest ups and downs, he was equally angry now. It took him a while before he calmed down, dialed the phone and said, notify the transportation department that all public transportation in and out of the city will be stopped. No one can be released from the city. What name? Is the outbreak of a severe infectious disease enough? Then he kept making phone calls, inform the media that a serious rabies epidemic has broken out in Raccoon City, please stay at home and don't come out. I don't care if they believe it or not, anyway, you have to believe it and give me the information, send out the news. Tell the people at @U0026T to shut down all communication base stations near Raccoon City and cut off all communication. Cut off all the wired telephone switches. Note 1. Tell the National Guard that a large-scale epidemic has broken out in Raccoon City, and let them block the surrounding areas of the city, but don't enter the city. Finally, he hesitated, took out a satellite phone, dialed a mysterious number, and his tone became more cautious. Hello, Mr. Henry. Listen to me, I must evacuate Raccoon City as soon as possible. I hope you can help me arrange it. I know that your umbrella company wants to destroy all evidence, but please believe me, if I can't escape, there will be more evidence sent directly to the desk of the President of the United States. Yes, we still have a happy cooperation, right? Remember, there is also my daughter, who will leave with me. Okay, then I'll go first. When will the U.B.C.S troops arrive? Tomorrow. Then you better hope they can find my daughter, otherwise. At 17:12 p.m. on September 25, inside Raccoon City. The mouth of the sewer well was pushed open, and zombies that looked like tramps crawled out of it one after another, staggered out, and searched for all living creatures. Wow! The glass of the street shop was smashed, and several zombies walked out of it. Run! Run! Several survivors ran away in a hurry. Fortunately, the biting guys were not fast, they just walked unhurriedly. After a while of running wildly, they finally opened up the distance. However, before they could catch their breath, several zombies suddenly fell from the nearby upstairs and landed on top of one of them. The zombie opened its mouth unceremoniously and bit, and there was a shrill scream, and countless blood and flesh splattered. Boom! Boom! Gunshots started to sound one after another in the city, and someone started to shoot back, but the gunshots only attracted more zombies. More and more people are infected, and more people join the ranks of zombies. Note 1, one of the largest communication companies in the United States. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 49. 49 Prepare for Battle. Chen Yuyan opened his eyes, moved his limbs, and felt that he had almost completely recovered. The liquid in the medical culture tank has been drained, and he walked straight out. Four Eyes took a piece of clothing and threw it to him. When she saw Chen Yuyan's body, she didn't feel shy at all, she just looked at it generously with an expression of appreciation. Your treatment was carried out by Bertha and I, and it didn't go through the company level. Four Eyes said. Chen Yuyan turned her head, and sure enough, she saw Bertha sitting beside her with a gloomy expression. When she noticed Chen Yuyan's gaze, she just raised her head and nodded slightly as a greeting. He smiled. His body has a lot of secrets, it is naturally best not to be discovered by the company, so this matter is also considered very carefully by Four Eyes. No wonder Four Eyes and Bertha were busy in front of him these 2 days, but he didn't see any other nurses. It turned out to be the reason. Thank you, he said. Don't thank us, after all, you saved all of our lives. Bertha stood up and said, looked Chen Yuyan up and down, nodded and said, your injuries are basically contusions and skin trauma, 3 ribs a fractured bone is considered the most serious injury. But your body recovers much faster than ordinary people, so you will heal within 2 or 3 days. Fracture. It was obviously broken. Chen Yuyan thought to himself, but then he also understood that this was the reason why he absorbed Tiberium mine at that time. But the most important thing now is not this. He thought of the most serious thing now, and quickly asked, how is the situation in Raccoon City and the company? Go to the conference room. Mother Wolf just asked us to come and call you. If you can walk, then come to the meeting, that's what she said. Four Eyes said. Chen Yuyan nodded, and went to the meeting room with them. Here, other members of U.S. also came, including the driver Klein, a total of 8 people. We have a complicated situation now, Rupier said. The company seems to be very dissatisfied with the results of our last operation. They think we lost the G-virus sample. Damn it! Beltway slammed on the table and cursed loudly. Obviously they ordered us not to join the Alpha team. And they didn't tell us to deal with that kind of invulnerable mutant monster. Now they're blaming us with their mouths? If even Death Hank fails, then the failure of this mission must not be blamed on us. Victor said in a deep voice. Looper shook his head and said, the top management of the company has panicked, and it is not surprising that they have drawn any conclusions. Who is the high-level person who is in direct contact with us? Bertha asked. Christine Henry. Looper said, he is the commander of Umbrella's French headquarters, and he was the one who lost his temper in the communication last time. Chen Yuyan glanced around. It turned out that the guy had the same name as hers. In the recent understanding, he also knows that Four Eyes is actually of Japanese descent, and his grandparents went to settle in the United States. Her name is Christine Yamaha, and her Japanese name is Kyoko Yamaha, but this name is just a symbol in the family tree. He raised his hand and asked, so what's the situation with Umbrella Corporation and Raccoon City now? Looper took a deep look at Chun Yuyan, and it was his reminder that she had been intensively collecting all the news about the company's latest trends and Raccoon City in the past few days. And it turns out, it was all very far-sighted moves? She nodded, opened the document on the computer and said, the company has conducted a series of investigations into the virus leak incident in the Acre Mountain area, and 3 senior executives have been resigned because of this. In fact, during the 3 days of your healing, Victor and Phantom have already dealt with the 3 senior executives who were resigned. In addition, during the internal investigation, there is also a researcher named Frederick Don missing, and he has not been found yet. The company issued a reward for him. As long as he is dead or alive, the bonus is $500,000. Rupier opened another file, and this time even someone as hard-hearted as her could not help shaking her head and sighing. Then, Raccoon City. Now the water supply system there has been contaminated by the T-virus, and after the arrest of William Birkin failed. After the incident, G-virus was added to the source of infection. The 2 viruses are mixed, and now the company has basically determined that there is no possibility to clean up the pollution. She opened a series of photos. These photos are extremely bloody. They are all surveillance photos of infected zombies hurting people everywhere. I launched my own relationship to investigate, and the situation in Raccoon City is completely out of control now. After our operation failed on the 3rd day after that is, today, September 25th, the infected zombies had begun to form clusters. Thousands of zombie groups appeared on several main streets of Raccoon City, and the ranks of the zombie swarm are still expanding. The Raccoon City police and the local SWAT team organized several interceptions, but all ended in failure. Now the US military has completely sealed off Raccoon City, and a large number of officials in Raccoon City, headed by Mayor Warren and Police Chief Irons, have accepted bribes from Umbrella Corporation, so they have also carried out in the city blockade. To put it simply, the current Raccoon City is a closed hell. There is no way to escape, but to wait for death. In other words, the company's top management chose to cover up everything in this matter? Victor said in a deep voice. Yes, even if all the more than 100,000 residents of Raccoon City will die because of this, they will not hesitate, because it is related to the survival of the company. Phantom folded his arms and said coldly, Umbrella Corporation owns hundreds of billions of dollars. The volume of the dollar, the high level will not care about these. That's not enough. Chen Yuyan said, we will almost certainly be sent to Raccoon City by the high level. That's sending us to our deaths. Impossible. Beltway growled. Nothing is impossible. How much value are we worth in the minds of high-level officials? $100 million or $1 billion. They can spend 10 times the money to organize another USS as long as they can escape this catastrophe. What will they pay for it? They are all willing to give. Chen Yuyan said coldly. Everyone fell into silence. The task of going to Raccoon City is nothing more than killing people, and continuing to hunt down and kill William Birkin to obtain samples of the G virus. We must be prepared and do well, in the midst of the siege of more than 100,000 zombies, to achieve the goal. Get ready. Chen Yuyan said. Cao Tenma, I quit. Beltway slammed his fist on the table again. Don't talk about this. Do you think that the company gave you so much money to support you, provided you with the best equipment, and let you know so much confidential information, just to let you come and go whenever you want? Don't force, I'll do it for you at that time. Because if the price is right, I will definitely do it. Looper's voice was a bit sinister, but Chen Yuyan also understood that what Wolf Mother said was actually for his own good. Victor also nodded and said, fighting under the siege of more than 100,000 zombies, I don't want my teammates to be supplementary. If we want to make money and survive, the 8 of us must work together. He said at that time, his eyes had been fixed on Chen Yuyan, but now Chen Yuyan is his most recognized teammate. After all, both of them can be said to have been directly taught by Death Hank, and their strengths are also very close. Do you have any plan? 0. Looper looked at Chen Yuyan and asked. Chen Yuyan held up 3 fingers, and said in a deep voice, there is no plan, but we have 3 points that need special attention. We must make preparations in advance. Thank you for the 200 starting point coins that you can reward by telling the truth. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 50. 50. The situation is out of control. The first thing, we must establish a supply point. We must ensure that there are enough weapons, bullets, medicines, and even food supplies during the long-term battle. Chen Yuyan said solemnly. A private airport built by Umbrella Corporation near Breckenridge, Colorado, USA. A man in uniform whispered over the phone, I see, Rupier. 6 airdrops? That would require 2 helicopters, and I happen to have 2 SA-330 Cougar helicopters that can be used here. But when will the goods arrive? Now. He raised his head, and sure enough, he saw several jeeps approaching at a high speed, and the high-speed wheels rolled up a large amount of sand, forming a long smoke trail. The man curled his lips and said, it seems that your efficiency is as fast as ever. Well, 6 items will be airdropped to Raccoon City. Although the vicinity of Raccoon City is being blocked by the US military, I still have some channels to send the plane to Raccoon City. Sent in. It's just the price. Hee 200,000. No, now is an extraordinary period, and you have to double it, and you also said that this matter cannot be known by the company, so you can't be careless. Okay, deal. When? The 400,000 will be in my account, and I will start to act anytime. He didn't finish speaking, only heard a beep from the laptop next to him. He went to check and found that 400,000 US dollars had already entered his account. Without hesitation, this person walked over and shouted to the busy staff at the airport, come here. Come here. Get to work. Load the cargo from those jeeps into the helicopter. Yes. That's the 2 Cougar. Then he looked at the laptop next to him, and said to himself, the police station, the city hall, the city park, the city hospital, the power station, the clock tower, why are these 6 places? He frowned and turned his head loudly said, bring me a map of Raccoon City. On the other side, the staff has already driven the forklift to unload the goods. These are 6 huge metal boxes, about 2 meters long and 1 meter wide, and sophisticated combination locks and positioning devices are installed on the boxes to ensure only people in the U.S. can find it, and only they can open it. Chen Yuyan raised another finger and said, the second thing, the company's patience with us has been greatly reduced now, and this operation is likely to use us as a one-time consumable. We must ensure that there are things that the company is interested in and even afraid of, so the company dare not give up on us easily. The ghost snorted coldly, you want us to set off with Umbrella's handle? Chen Yuyan smiled lightly and said, is there a better handle than Raccoon City? What we have to do is to crack the monitoring system on our combat uniforms, so that we can act without the company's surveillance when necessary. Only you can do this, Ghost, if you want. After all, you used to be a member of the former Soviet intelligence agency GRU, and you are also responsible for this here, right? After finishing speaking, he stared at the Ghost with burning eyes, and at this time, other U.S.S team members were also staring at him. The Ghost's voice suddenly became extremely cold, and his expression had never been so terrifying. There was even a hint of blackness on his thin and pale face. You investigate me? You will also participate in the action, and you should know better than us what the attitude of the company's senior management is towards us, right? So, I should investigate whether you are such a thing. Should we wait until we come back alive? What else? Chen Yuyan was not at all moved by the Ghost's aura. In fact, if he hadn't read the notes left by Mocha, he would never have guessed that the Ghost was actually the company's supervisor in the U.S.S. Although he is usually reticent, he is a very easygoing person, and it is impossible to imagine that he is such a character. The most secret intelligence department of the former Soviet Union, the Intelligence Bureau of the General Staff, the GRU. Spectre is worthy of being a person who came out of this top espionage organization. His depth and scheming are extremely terrifying. But now, Chen Yuyan caught him by the tail. This is something that Phantom can't imagine anyway. Even if he is a top spy, he doesn't know why he was exposed. But in fact, it is very simple for Chen Yuyan, because no matter how he hides it, he can't hide an existence bigger than the sky, the plot setting. Looking at the eyes of the U.S.S members around him, and then remained silent for a while, Spectre nodded and said, I will cut off the company's monitoring of us at the right time to ensure the secrecy of our actions. But you have to understand one thing, talk to the company, it's no good to be right. I'm also thinking of you. Chen Yuyan smiled and said, of course I know that it's not good to go against the company, at least, it's like this now. As for the last thing, Chen Yuyan raised his third finger and said, we need to have a comprehensive understanding of what we need to face. First of all kinds of humans, animals, and even plants infected by viruses must be treated. Get a comprehensive understanding. Then there are all kinds of B.O.Ws that may be raging in Raccoon City, and even William Birkin and the researcher who mutated the G virus. We also need to know how they are. So that's why you asked for anti-tank rockets in the airdropped supplies? Rupier asked. Of course, if you can't do it with ordinary firearms, let's use anti-tank rockets. I don't believe they can be tougher than tanks. Chen Yuyan said with a smile, and his expression became serious again, and there is another important thing to pay attention to. The subjects. Those who appeared in the institute in plain clothes. You mean, the people we think are plainclothes inside the American intelligence agency? Ghost asked. Chen Yuyan nodded, I feel that they are more like civilians with unique skills than organized intelligence personnel. Among these people, some have supernatural powers, some have very unique weapons, and some have very good fighting skills. But without exception, their physical fitness is comparable to ours. We were able to kill them easily, more because the training we received was more systematic, and our cooperation there is also a lot more tacit understanding. But his expression was a bit dignified. What if there is someone with stronger physical fitness and fighting skills than us? No one can guarantee that such a person exists. Therefore, we need to prepare well to face such a superhuman individual. How should we deal with it? All U.S.S members nodded. On September 26, 1998, Umbrella Corporation dispatched several helicopters to the burning Raccoon City in the name of saving survivors. The helicopter was fully loaded with U.B.C.S soldiers, Umbrella's Biohazard Emergency Response Force. In this operation, all U.B.C.S were dispatched, a total of more than 120 people, divided into 4 teams A, B, C, and D, and each team was divided into 5 teams. They airborne and landed in the 4 areas of Raccoon City, southeast, northwest, and immediately launched a rescue operation targeting civilians. However, U.B.C.'s magnificence and upright behavior hide Umbrella's extremely dark and evil intentions. Thank you for the reward of 2,000 starting coins from Juangshan Wang. Thank you for the 1,000 starting point coins rewarded by Assimilation Fighters and Star Sea Rangers.